can say whatever you want, more or less. But young professors have to watch out. Well, because people are evaluating them, and then they hear they're not PC, they're not telling the right line, and so they're dead. I don't think I said anything particularly wrong. I said something nationalistic, which I don't think is wrong to speak in favor of this country occasionally. I don't think that we're speaking in favor of their policy in Iraq. I think they've totally messed it up. I think that they, have messed it up from the days of Papa Bush, and it's been a mess from day one. But I think that the motives may have been honest and decent on the whole, maybe not. But I do think it's right to confront killers, murderers, and people like that, and try to protect defenseless people. I think even Arabs think that. We did Marua. Marua demands that you protect the weak and defy the strong. That's what Marua was all about in the bird's nest thing. Oh, little bird, don't worry, I will protect you. And if someone is bullying and butchering and doing things to weaker people who can't defend themselves and have no way to defend themselves, then yes, you have an obligation to step in if you care about righteousness and justice. It's not very nice. It's very unpleasant. But you have an obligation if you're able to step in. You say, well, how do you know you are right? That's the million-dollar question. How do you know you were right? That answer I can't tell you, but I think you feel it in your gut. And the United States should definitely have stepped in, and England and other countries in the 1930s with Hitler. And as I said, 40 million people wouldn't have been killed. No atom bombs would have been dropped on anybody, on anyone, and so on and so on and so on and so forth. You know that that's true, and so it's a gut thing. You step in if you can to protect the weak, not to look for weapons of mass destruction. That was just a pretext. We all know that. That's not why they went in. It was just a pretext. We agree with that, but let's not get hung up on that. Let's decide, is it right to try to help a situation like that? You say, no, it isn't. Okay. I say, yes, it is right to try to help if you can, but try to help in the best way that you know how. Get some good Arabists like you people are going to be to help you out. All right, back to the Imam doctrine. So the Imam is this supernatural doctrine of an incarnated being that somehow becomes Ali, and since the word Imam has to do with standing in front of, to my mind, if you look at the pseudo-clementines, which is why I brought them up, the primal Adam is also called the standing one, the one who stands in front. So to my mind, right there is the almost absolute connection between the two doctrines. That the Ebionite primal Adam idea, say, well, when did that come? Oh, 1st century to about 6th century. Right before the coming of Islam in these same areas. So, I mean, I can't prove that that happened, but it seems to me logical to think it happened, that's all. I mean, where else did this Imam doctrine come from? It's not in the Koran. Where did they get it from? So anyway, why Ali became so important suddenly? Was Ali so important? Was he a principal mover in the whole thing? He was a noble fellow. He was a chivalrous man. He tried to do what he thought was right, obviously. But was he a supernatural being? An incarnation of the deity? I'm not sure. That's something else. You'll have to decide for in the way that you believe. So we talked about all that, and we talked about the different Shiite groups. The Imam was considered incarnated in the Imams that followed. So that you had 5 Imams in 5 Imam Shiism, 7 Imams in 7 Imam Shiism, 12 Imams in 12 Imam Shiism. So you say, well, so what? What are you telling us? You're not telling us anything new. But there is something new here, which is why I told you to talk about the hidden Imam. This brings us to the hidden Imam. What is the hidden Imam? The hidden Imam is the situation that transpires when the Imam disappears. And to use, I don't know the Arabic term for this exactly, I used to know it, but it slipped my mind, but the English equivalent is he goes into occultation. Occult means hidden, actually. We mean it strange, but it really means in English and Latin and other Latin-based language, hidden, occultation, hiddenation. Jesus, by the way, in Christianity, basically is an Imam. except for his godlike qualities. But he's an Imam. He was taken up to heaven, right? If you can accept that kind of presentation, he was taken up to heaven. And he's now hidden. He's in occultation. Why is he hidden? Because he's going to come back. He's only in hiding at the moment. He's going to return. So it's not the same vocabulary as Christianity uses, but it's parallel. So this other vocabulary of disappearing and expected return. You know, Jesus, they go to the tomb, what happens? The tomb is empty. Oh, Mary Magdalene, out of whom they chased 7 devils, supposedly, says, I saw the angels come and they told me he was resurrected. I don't know. Anyway, whatever the story is as it's presented there. The point is that he's gone. And he's now disappeared. Is he dead? Is he alive? He appears to his disciples later, so supposedly he's not dead, but he's not the same substance according to the way they put things. They can put their fingers in his wounds and this sort of thing. An apparition, a man god, a supernatural being, an Imam, a primal Adam incarnate, a hidden Imam. Because then he goes away, doesn't he? Where is he now? They saw and he was ascended. Ascended to where? He's walking on the clouds that jet planes fly over? Where is he? Where is he? No one believes anymore that gods walk on the clouds. I mean, maybe the science at that time would have supported that, but now we fly above the clouds and we know we're not gods. And we know that after the clouds, there's just nothing out there. It gets thinner and thinner and thinner and thinner until it's just, cosmic rays. So there's no place for him out there. And there's no place in the clouds. So where is he? Where is this heaven place? Occultation. He's gone into an alternate universe, okay, for a modern language. He's gone through the black hole or the, what do you call that thing that started the whole universe nowadays? They call it a singularity. He's gone through the singularity. In any case, people like to speculate about all those things. I don't know where he is, but the Muslim idea and the Shiite idea is probably the best way of seeing it. He's gone into occultation. He's hidden. He can be incarnated again, according to certainly the Judeo-Christian groups. He would be incarnated, but in the Shiite groups, he's incarnated in a hidden way. When the Ayatollah Khomeini came around, people said, "Oh, he's the hidden Imam." He's the hidden. A lot of people thought he was the hidden Imam, that he was an incarnation of the Imam. But I'm not sure that he claimed that. I don't think he did. That's quite an exalted claim. I don't think he made quite that claim, but his followers were saying that. So they're waiting for him, much the same as Christians are waiting. What are Christians waiting for? I don't know if they really are. You have to ask a Christian that. Every Christian might tell you something different. But what are Christians waiting for? The return of Jesus. Jesus is going to come now in glory with all the heavenly host, and he's going to put things right. In fact, I'm waiting for the rapture. I'm stock in my garage full of canned goods and water bottles and the whole deal that I'm going to need on my journey. But Jesus is coming, and he's coming with the heavenly angels, and all evil is going to be eradicated, and the Messianic kingdom is going to be. I see you're smiling. And the Messianic kingdom is going to be founded upon earth, led by Joe Stalin or something probably. But in any case, the Messianic kingdom is upon us. These are lovely ideas. I'm not laughing at them as such. I'm chuckling because I see how idealistic they are. And when you see something idealistic, it makes you kind of chuckle. It's nice. It's beautiful. It's wonderful to think that way. If you can think that way, continue. Your life will be a happier thing. You'll be a blessed person, and you'll not have too many bad vibes. So, if you are in limbo like some of the rest of us, you get dark moods. So these ideas are not ugly. These are wonderfully beautiful, colorful ideas that have saved a lot of people, a lot of unpleasantness and harshness. However, it's very similar to the hidden Imam idea. He's an occultation and is going to return, and that's the way it is in Shiism. Yeah.
I just wanted to add, Muslims also believe that Jesus will return.
Well, we're going to get to that. You're always one. You want to teach? I know you're a smart guy, but we take things one step at a time. And, frankly, if you don't think I know Muslims also believe that, then I think you don't know me very well by now, which I'm surprised. You should know me enough to know that I know those things. In any case, I was getting to that. We're at the hidden Imam. Yes, they believe that the hidden Imam is going to return. He's called the Mahdi. Now, the Mahdi was also the name of the last Imam in 12 Imam Shiism. But this is sort of called the expected one. It's a messianic kind of figure. But there's a whole eschatology that he's talking about, that Jesus is going to return and he's going to fight the Dajjal, and after the Dajjal, the Mahdi is going to come, and so on and so forth. But I'll go into that in a moment. Just wanted him to know that we know all about those things. But you say Muslims all believe. What do you mean Muslims believe? People are told to believe. Do you come out of the womb believing something? I mean, do you know what you're supposed to believe till someone says, now look, kid, this is what you're supposed to believe. Muslims believe this. Oh, I'm a Muslim? Okay, I believe that. But the question is, do you really believe that? Do you really, as a Muslim, think Jesus is going to come back? Do you really think that he's going to fight the Dajjal, or are you just sort of spouting doctrine? It's in every religion, not just Islam. I'm not a big person for spouting doctrine. I had an argument. Who was in my class last night? Anybody here? I had one argument with one kid who said, now tell me, Professor Eisenman, do the Christians believe the Messiah's already come, and the Jews believe he's going to come, right? I said, well, I don't have any idea what Jews believe. I don't think they know themselves what they believe. Well, I said, you just try to simplify everything too simply. He said, well, I thought that's what you're saying. I said, no. I mean, go. If you ever met any Jews, go ask them what they believe. Okay, you want to ask the black-coated Jews up here in Long Beach, who you see on the streets up there called the Hasidim, what they believe? Yeah, they might believe the Messiah is going to come. They even have songs about, look, you may not know it, but Scooter Libby is Jewish, in the White House. The guy, he's a Jewish guy, even though he doesn't, I'm sure, practice it. He's married to a Christian woman and so on, but he's Jewish. Go ask Scooter Libby. He's a Jew. Do you believe that the Messiah is going to come? I doubt it very seriously if he believes any such thing. So when you say what the Jews believe, I'm sure if you went across the whole Jews, say, well, that's what I'm told, but do I believe it? I'm sure 75, 80% of Jews would say, no, I don't really think so. They don't believe really any Messiah is coming, but they want to believe. It's a nice idea and so on. But you say that the Jews believe, or that the Muslims believe. You think all Muslims believe that Jesus is going to come back? No, I doubt it. I mean, I haven't taken a poll. I mean, an honest Muslim, not one who's just spouting doctrine. So that's why I hesitate to say what they believe, because I think what people actually believe is very different from what you hear that people believe. Anyway, what he's talking about comes in some hadith. It's not in the Bible or the Koran as such, and it comes through the hadith literature, which we're going to get to when we study Islamic law. I'm not even sure it's a Shiite idea. I think it is actually a Sunni idea from the Sunni hadith. And we call this, I don't remember which hadith it's in, but it's not going to be accepted by all Muslims, that's for sure. We're going to talk about the hadith in a moment. So that would be in the hadith literature. This is an eschatological hadith. We use this word, this fancy word in Western language. What is eschatology? Eschatology is the consideration of last things, what's going to happen at the end time. Of course, it assumes that there is an end time. Islam is an eschatological religion. The Prophet speaks about the day of judgment. It's in the Judeo-Christian eschatological tradition. Buddhism, Taoism, Hinduism, Confucianism, these are not eschatological religions. They don't speak of an end time. What they're interested in is enlightenment. You see, it's a totally different thing. Only the Western religions are eschatological. Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. And Judaism very minimally so now. But again, you'd have to go around and meet Jews. You don't know how different all Jews are. I know Jews somewhat, and I can tell you, unless you've met them, as they say, in a room, and there's 5 Jews, you've got 6 different opinions. And, you know, that's just the way they are. They don't agree with each other on anything, and you have no consistency because there's no central body telling them what to believe, except the really ultra-Orthodox groups. There's just no central body, and I'm sure the people with Jewish background in this room here will tell you that that's true. No one ever told them what they're supposed to believe. They don't even know themselves. And they say, well, then what are they? Well, it's more a national identity, which is why the Muslim objection to the Zionist movement is a little bit unrealistic, because the Zionist movement is a kind of Jewish national liberation movement after all the suffering that they went through to finally say, well, as a people, we need, you know, if we don't have a territory and sovereignty and a country, we're just going to be devastated more and more and more and more. And of course, that's what's been happening, and it's likely to continue to happen. But the point of the matter is they felt that at some point they had to assert their peoplehood, not their spiritualhood. And I think most Jews, when you meet them, if you scratch them, they'll be Jewish like an Italian is Italian. And that's how they were treated in Europe. They used to write on their passport, Jew. Like an Italian is an Italian, like an Arab is an Arab, like a Greek is a Greek, like a Frenchman is a Frenchman, like a Scotsman is a Scotsman. Some of them might believe in Judaism, some of them may not. I think most of them don't even know what it is. So anyway, that's what I mean. These capsule descriptions, do people believe something? You'll have to decide for yourself. In any event, this, as the gentleman was saying, Muslims believe. Sunni Muslims have this tradition. I'm not sure that Shiites have this idea. It is an interesting thing. I think it is influenced by the same Judeo-Christianism I've talked about, because they do have an idea of, in this eschatology, of a Dajjal. And in strict language, that sort of means like a joker, or you know, the Antichrist, or something like that. But in the word really means literally a joker, a comedian, or something. And in the Dead Sea Scrolls, we have just such a person opposing the righteous teacher, a person who's called a comedian, a joker, a man of jesting, a liar. Again, I think it's influenced by that sort of material. As I told you, for the Ebionites, Paul is the Dajjal, Paul is the liar, Paul is the Antichrist, Paul is the enemy of God. For Christianity, Paul is the saint of God, so you know, you're going to have to figure that one out. So this sort of stuff, I think, went into the Hadith, into the eschatology. So you've got an idea that in the end of time, Jesus and the Dajjal were going to do battle with each other, and then finally the Mahdi was going to come and set everything right. That's the Islamic eschatology as set forth in the Hadith literature. Anything that you have to add to that? No, that's basically what it is. Again, I only miss, if you can find out where that Hadith is, would be really good to know what the source of that is. Okay. Yeah, find it, because you have the books, you'll be able to find it. That's good piece of information. Okay, over to Shiism and finish up here. When the Imams went into occultation, the fifth Imam, Zayd, went into occultation, no Imams after that, he's still been being waiting for. The seventh Imam, Ismail, went into occultation, 7 Imams, Shiites, they're waiting for his return. The Ismailis and the Fatimids, who descended from this Ismailis, the Fatimid Caliphate in 200 years later in Egypt, the 900s, 1000s, were making the claim that basically they were the hidden Imams. Then, when I told you, one of their representatives, a very nasty one too, a person who killed a lot of people and was very intolerant, his name was Al-Hakim. It was around, I forget, maybe around 1200, late 1100s. He was the last Fatimid Caliph, and he was very cruel, and he obviously was assassinated and thrown down a well or something, and he disappeared. Well, then, as I told you, this guy went to Lebanon and started making propaganda that he was the hidden Imam. Well, he's an Imam because he's a Fatimid, and because the whole claim of the Fatimid Caliphate is that they were Imams succeeding the 7th Imam. So this guy who made propaganda, as I told you last time, was called Al-Darazi. And as his propaganda on behalf of this disappeared caliph, Al-Hakim, took hold in the Lebanon and Syrian mountains, which are always, you know, places, hardy places to survive, a new Islamic or pseudo-Islamic group who doesn't even consider themselves Islamic anymore, Druze, So as I told you, Shiism is capable of great metamorphoses. So he said, what? The Druze worship Al-Hakim? Well, that's how they started, yeah. But they have secret doctrines, just like the Gnostics do. And in addition, they claim that they're descendants of Moses' father-in-law Jethro. They've got all sorts of other ideas, but you can't find out their beliefs because they're not allowed to reveal them, and if they do, again, it's punishable by death. So they do not reveal their hidden beliefs to outsiders. So, but they are a strong presence in Golan Heights, southern Lebanon, Galilee, parts of Syria, and so on. Another group, the present leadership in Syria, Hafiz Afan and his followers were groups of this one, Alawis. They're all Alawis. That's not Shiite and that's not Sunni. And you can see from here it's a plural of Ali. It's multiple Alis. They are an Imam group. But they're also called, for some reason, Nusayris. Now, I've never sorted all this out. But Nusayri is from Nasir, which comes from what they Muslims used to call Christians, Nazarenes. So I do think it's, again, a Judeo-Christian offshoot that has gone through Shiism and come out as another group, a separate group called Alawis. I have no idea. Again, they're a secret group. They don't reveal their doctrines. You can't find out what they believe. And that's it. They're very clannish, and that's how they manage to control Syria. They control the army and they control the government in Syria. So you see, this area is not homogeneous, chock full of different groups. And of course, latterly, out of 12 Imam Shiism. Okay, so the 7 Imam Shiites, they think that Ismail went into occultation. The 12 Imam Shiites think that the 12th Imam, after him, it ceased, and they're waiting for the hidden Imam to return. That the Imam is now hidden, and that's why when Khomeini came, they thought that was it, and that's why everything is in ferment in Iran at the moment, that maybe that's what's happening, and so on. It's very, I don't think, I like the word dangerous. It's very dangerous to the West. It's dangerous insofar as people's religious expectations are deeply tied up in it. So it's very, you know, it can be very powerful. It has a very powerful, because it's based on long-held traditional beliefs, this idea of the hidden Imam, and the return, and the Mahdi, and so on. You know, did you ever see that movie, Cartoon? Anyone see that on late-night TV? I mean, I saw it when it first came out when I was young. Anyone in this room see it? Cartoon, yeah. Have you ever seen, well, go rent it, and it's got Laurence Olivier in it, and who's that guy that's head of the National Rifle Association, the actor? Charlton Heston. And it's about a guy called Chinese Gordon, who was the British governor in Khartoum, and he's facing, guess who? The enemy in the movie. The British are fighting the different shaded, colored folks of the Sudan, led by someone called the Mahdi. And his claim is that he is the Mahdi. This really happened in the 1800s. And this Mahdiism swept through the Sudan. And of course he was claiming that he was the hidden Imam returned. He was the Mahdi. And you know, he was also supposed to look like Muhammad. And according to the tradition, Muhammad had a gap in his teeth, according to the Hadith, you know. And so they have, in the movie, they have Laurence Olivier in dark face playing the Mahdi, and he's got, you know, his teeth are color tied, he's got a gap there in his teeth. So he looks like the Mahdi, you see. I recommend you see the movie. It was a good movie. Better than movies I make nowadays, like I was telling you. Really a fun movie, and dramatic, and historically, at least in the ballpark, and quite well acted, and really edifying in many ways. So it's about how this British governor stood up to the Mahdi and got himself killed. How the British all got upset and then returned with Winston Churchill and the cavalry. And that was the last cavalry charge at Omdurman in the 1870s or 80s with General Kitchener, and punished the Sudanese for this revolt with Chinese Gordon. Chinese Gordon got his name from having put down the Boxer Rebellion in China. And then they brought him out to the to Khartoum, and he wouldn't give way, and so on. So it's a very dramatic period of history, and Winston Churchill writes about it in his memoirs because he was there. He was in the last charge on horseback that they made against the Mahdi's army. So you can read about that. And go, well, I encountered these people too. And guess where I met them? I met them in the subway of New York. One day I was in the subway of New York, you know, in the old days, about 15 years ago, there'd be music playing like this, and they have all kinds of tables there, like an old underground world before, you know, they started to clean it up under Mayor Giuliani, but before that it was like, you know, another universe. And every kind of person you can imagine was down there huckstering, hyping something. And then there was this long table, a very sort of elegantly dressed and very exciting Arab music playing, and they were all sitting there, and they were giving out Mahdi propaganda. They had little booklets, I still have them at home, the Mahdi, and who he is, and what Mahdiism is, and how, and you could see it was a mixture of Christianity and Islam. It wasn't Christian and it wasn't Islam, it had a mixture of both in it. And they had a center out on Long Island where one of the Mahdis, he was called the Mahdi, one of the Mahdi's descendants was holding court, and he was sending his representatives into the New York subways. So I met him in the underground New York subway. You know, the Mahdi lives. Very exciting for me to meet the Mahdi and his descendants. I really, they couldn't drag me away from that table. I was so interested in it. It was really fascinating. So anyway, the Mahdi is the expected one, and after 12 Imam Shi'ism, that's the last type of Shi'ism. Okay, enough about Shi'ism. Any questions? My friend who wanted to hear about Shi'ism, she's ill, she's not here, and now she hasn't learned it. I'm going to keep you till 1:15, so don't jump up because I came in 5 minutes late. Okay. Before we go to the pre-Islamic poetry, which I gave you out that stuff about, we're going to do a little bit on Sharia. Or as it's called, Islamic law. That's right, Sharia. Read, if you've got the Gib book, read it. It's very good on Sharia, Mohammedanism. It's the best book I know that sets it all out for you really nicely and gives you all of the materials in it. Now, the 5 pillars of Islam that we identified in the Surah 2 of the Quran are somewhat part of how Sharia is constructed. Remember, the first pillar was Shahada. I'll give you the Arabic names. I'll tell you what that means in a minute. The second pillar was Salah. The third pillar was Ramadan. This may not be in the proper order. The fourth pillar was Zakat, charity. And the fifth pillar was pilgrimage, Hajj. Now, that may not be in the right order.
What about the 6th one?
Well, it's not official, the 6th one. No, the 6th one, as I said, is some add of 6, but it's not part of the, if it's 5 pillars, it's not 6. Anyway, I said jihad may be considered to be a pillar by some, but not by others. Anyway, officially those are. Now, this is the Sunni presentation. The Shiites may or may not follow it to the same degree. And they, now this is testimony of the faith, La ilaha illallah wa Muhammad Rasulullah. Theoretically, if I've said that and if I'm in the proper state of purity, and this assumes tahara, purification, if I'm in the proper state of purification, tahara, I'm a Muslim. The problem is you have to have another thing, according to the strict Muslim niyyah, the right intent. And since I didn't have the right intent, I'm not a Muslim. But if you say that, La ilaha illallah wa Muhammad Rasulullah, basically you're a Muslim. You've done the confession of the faith. I can write it here on the board. La ilaha illa Allah wa Muhammad Rasulullah. No, people say, is the Hebrew God the same as the Muslim God? Yeah. El in Hebrew is Illah in Arabic. No El, no Illah. The vowels don't matter in Semitic language. And to show that, in fact, it is that way, if you know the other Hebrew word for God, Elohim, which is a plural, the H comes back in, you see, and here's the H here. So basically, they are the same. And in fact, Allah is really Al-Ilah. Slur it over, and you get Allah. Al-Ilah, Al-Ilah, Allah. So in fact, people say, is the Western God the same as Eastern God? Yeah, it is. People don't understand it. The vocabulary shifts a little bit. But no God, this is no, this is a negative, no God except Allah and what? Muhammad, Rasul, a messenger or apostle. Of God. So it's pretty straightforward. That's the Shahada, but it has to be said properly with the proper intent and the proper state of purification. And theoretically, as I said, if you said that, you have converted to Islam. No one thinks I've converted, even though I've said it around 50 or 60 times. I'm sure no Muslim in the room except thinks I converted. So their opinion is the correct one. The proper intent wasn't there, and that's the only thing that is lacking in saying it. So be careful when you say that, because if you have the intent, then a Muslim can think you're a Muslim. If you want to be a Muslim. Now, Salat is prayer. That too presupposes proper state of purification. And in prayer, there's a whole, particularly this is Sunnis now we're talking about, there's a whole regime associated with it. And this regime has to do with rakas. A raka is an actual prayer process you go through within the prayer ritual formula. So for instance, there are, as we saw in the Surah of the Cow, supposed to be 5 prayers a day. And originally it was 3 towards Jerusalem, and then it changed to it, as you remember, the prayer direction. What was that called? I gave it to his vocabulary. The prayer direction, what was it called? Qibla, the Qibla. Was one dearer to your hearts, as he put it in chapter 2. It was towards Mecca from that point on, and it was 5. So now these are, God, I'm not sure I get it right. You'll have to correct me if I got it wrong, because my brain is beginning to go to sleep these days. But one is in the pre-dawn, one is morning, one is noon, one is afternoon, and one is evening. Is that right?
One is like
pre-dawn.
Pre-dawn.
Yeah. One is morning. One is noon.
Pre-dawn is like before the sun.
Yeah, right.
Before the sun, then it's afternoon.
No, before.
Then it's noon, then afternoon, then evening, and then night.
Oh, I got an extra one in the morning, so they're all more. They cluster more towards the evening. And these are not specific times necessarily, except they have to be, before the sun comes up and so on and so forth. Actually, if you do these prayers in the way you're supposed to do them, you don't need to go to a health club. You don't need to go to the fitness gym, because they'll keep you pretty fit, because you have to. How many rakas in the pre-dawn one? Do you know?
4.
4 on the pre-dawn.
And 12 in the noon.
Is how many?
12.
No, not 12 rakas.
12 rakas.
No, well then you're a different group, because it's usually 5, 2, 2, 4, and 5, something like that. It's never 12.
We do it as 4, 4, 2, or there's in evening there's 3.
Yeah, 4, 4, 2, 3, and then the night is what?
Night is 4, 4, 2, 2, 3, 2.
Yeah, well anyway, the numbers always puzzle me. But if you read Gibb, he'll give you what the numbers are. I can show you now the different schools of Islamic law differ from each other just on a slight differences with how the raka should be performed, but they're more or less the same. And when we had time in this class, I'm a little bit in a hurry, I used to have some of my Muslims who were feeling brave come up here and perform a raka for you to show you how it was done. If there's any volunteer next time, we'll let you do that. Any Muslim in the room wants to do a raka to show the students how this is performed, we'd be happy to have you do that. And in any case, basically what do? You sort of bow, and then you go lower, and then down on your
knees on forehead.
On the floor with your forehead, and you say something, and then you come back up, and then you do it again, right?
The whole time you're just reading the Quran.
Yeah, but there's passages that
yes.
there's passages that you're doing, and but that's a whole ritual formula. That's called one of those. When you do the whole thing down and back up again is one raka. Then you got to go through it all again, depending on the number prescribed at that given time of the day. And those are the five prayers. I said, Gibda describes them quite well. Ramadan, we basically discussed. It's the fast month when the Koran, the night of power, was commemorated, the revelation of the Koran, and it's the holy month, the 8th month. And you fast in the day, and I don't know if you feast at night, but you relieve the fast. Some people probably are pretty hungry, so they do a bit of feasting at night. But life stops to a certain extent in most Muslim countries in Ramadan, because if you don't drink, and you're not supposed to drink in Ramadan either in the day, particularly if it's the summertime, you know it's a pretty tough regime to follow. 30 days of this is really tough, and you know, people start flagging, and certainly in physical labor jobs and things. There was an interesting problem that happened for Islamic law. What happens when a Muslim ambassador goes to Norway or Sweden during Midsummer's Night, when it's when there is no darkness? So when do they stop fasting? And that was interesting. I don't know how it was solved, but basically I'm sure they found a solution to it. But it became somewhat of an issue when Muslims discovered that there were midsummer nights in the northern regions. And if Ramadan came at that time of the year. Hajj, well, we'll do another time. Zakat is charity, poor due. And it was assessed. The different schools, what are you, Hanafi? What's your school of Sunnism? What school? I mean, each one follows a school. You can be Hanafi, you can be Hanbali, you can be, you know, Maliki, you can be Shafi. Where do you come from?
Never heard of those.
Are you kidding? Where do you come from?
There are like.
Where do you come from? What country?
I'm from Pakistan.
That's Hanafi. So you haven't heard of it because you are Hanafi.
Because I'm from a village, so it's just like.
Yeah, well, but because they don't know the other schools, they only know their own, so they don't realize that there's 3 other schools. Everyone in North Africa are Malikis. Everybody down in Arabia are Hanbalis, and everybody in Egypt and places like that, Indonesia, are Shafis. So you know, I'm going to tell you about Islamic law. So you see, I hate to be cruel, but you see, we in the West do know something about Islam, and sometimes we know more than the practitioners, because the practitioners only know what they've learned in their village sometimes. And he doesn't realize that he's a Hanafi, but I'll put my right hand on the line if he's not a Hanafi. That's the school of law that interprets it a certain way and gives you the precepts of how you're supposed to do things. And this is where Sharia is built up. Now, quickly, before you go, I'll just tell you how Sharia is built up. And then next time we'll pick up. This is called the Usul al-Fiqh. Usul al-Fiqh. The roots of the fiqh. And the fiqh, in Arabic, is the science of Islamic law, what we call in the West jurisprudence. The theory of law, jurisprudence, we call in the West. In Arabic, that's the fiqh. Now, the roots of the fiqh, depending on which school, and that's where the schools come in, the roots of the fiqh are, and I'll just give you this and I'll let you go. Hold on. The roots of the fiqh are Koran. That's one. Everything is well organized in Islam. It's very good. Sunnah. Ijma, this is Sunni Islam now, as you see, because Sunnis do, and Qiyas. These are the sources of Islamic law. The Quran, the Sunnah of the Prophet, I'll tell you about next time. Ijma, consensus, we had it in the choice of the Aqidah. And finally, Qiyas, analogy, what we would call precedent in Western law. See you next time. I'll give you a little bit of a course in Islamic law now.